And I swear I said this to people to bypass the lobby, and I'm just getting all these beeps here. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. I am going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. I'll share my screen. I just got a little PowerPoint here. This is, don't forget that I'm to record. So that's the first thing. All right, we'll keep admitting people and we'll just go through it. That way we can get started and get you guys on your way. So thank you again for joining. This is the partner-led virtual session. We're going to be talking about automation today. So this we're talking between some of your peers, and we, based on the IT Nation Connect, it sounded like automation was a very big need right now. So we decided to kick off this series of all of our virtual meetings with this topic. So these are partner-led sessions. This is something new. The purpose is really to bring more partners in, be able to grow our community, for our group, be able to interact with each other. I've always learned that we learn more from each other, from our challenges, and be able to ask us, questions and have really meaningful conversations between each other. And also, how about, just have a safe environment where we can, just come in and it's not going to be a sales pitch from ConnectWise or trying to, push any products or anything like that. It's just so we can see what's out there and see what other partners are actually using, so we can all learn again from each other. So we have a couple of things in here. If you want to participate, please participate. Use the chat on the side, and if you have any questions, let's go ahead and use the Q&A feature. I'll keep monitoring that if there's any questions. We do have a partner advisory council, so thank you guys for helping out. We have Scott Baden here with us, myself, Richard Coates, and Larry Rasmussen, and we are actually looking for more members. As you can see, the Central Mafia group, it expands and it touched a lot of territory, and the intent is to be able to reach to as many people as possible. And moving forward, we would like to actually have more regional, local groups and meetups. And it is really hard for me. I mean, like, Southern Indiana, to be able to come up with, a place over in Iowa where we can meet. So if you are interested in joining and helping out, just reach out to me directly. And I'm still admitting people here, and we'll appreciate it and your feedback to get this moving. If you're not part of the Slack group, make sure you join our Slack group. We use it in there for a lot of conversations. By the way, no, there's some talks about where we're going to have the next IT Nation share. It is going to be over in the Burr Ridge area. So for those in the Chicago region, if you have any suggestions for where we can have dinner the night before, just send me that info because they're looking for some feedback on that. Next month, we're also going to have a session. It's going to be around Brightgage. We have one of the product managers from Brightgage actually just reached out to me yesterday, and he will be presenting about the product best practices on some proof of concept. I know that Brightgage has been an interest because a lot of things are integrating into it. So we're going to have a focus on that. And lastly, here for today's agenda, the intent, again, is all around automation. We're going to start with Cam. He's the winner of the Pitch It event over that we had at Connect. So he's going to go through their solution. And then when he's done, I wanted this to be I envision this to be really interactive. So let's talk about like automation solutions, what you have out there with any of your products. If you have something that's really cool that you've done, it's like, hey, this is something that I've done, and I want everybody to know about it. And if you have any questions, this will be the place to ask those questions. This session is being recorded, so we'll post that out there for everybody to see. So that's it for me. That is my intro. Cam is online. I see you, and feel free, buddy, to share your screen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and
cool. I will jump in and start sharing.
Awesome.
Awesome. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
All right. Perfect. So I'm here today. I'm here with AlertOps, as Juan had mentioned. Really appreciate everyone joining. I'm super pumped to hear about an MSP peer group kind of getting its grassroots foundation in the Midwest area. So I think that's awesome, especially being in the Chicagoland area myself. Definitely, I love these conversations, and it being so close to home is great. But beyond that, I'm here today to talk to you guys about AlertOps. I know that the focus on today's session is purely around automation. And what AlertOps does is focus on-call notifications and response. So throughout the course of your operations day to day, we jump in and we automate a small piece of it. But that small piece that we automate can make a big difference. And I think that's just a small glimpse into what can be done with automation, whether it's an RMM solution, an RPA tool, or an alert management solution like AlertOps. Now, with that said, I will go ahead and jump in. So, AlertOps, master the unexpected. We expect service requests to pop up all the time. We expect incidents to happen all the time. It's the nature of the beast. Now, what do we do when something unexpected happens? Do we have SOPs in place to properly address them? And if we do, are we adhering to them, right? What layers of redundancy have we built in? Do we have any safety nets to prevent us from exceeding SLAs, things of that nature? Now, let me go ahead and start with what AlertOps is. As like I'd mentioned, we're an alert management response solution, and there are other basic on-call solutions out there in the ecosystem. A lot of them have functionality around scheduling. A lot of them have functionality around notification and escalation. Now, the concept of notification is a small piece of response. So the natural progression for this kind of space is to be able to move from I've seen something to on my phone to be able to say I have seen something and I can do something on my phone, right? So that way we're helping do quite a bit in terms of the manual triage, as well as provide a bit better of a lifestyle for techs that are expected to stare at a machine overnight when they're on call. So where AlertOps comes in and extends the functionality of your run-of-the-mill on-call solution out there in the ecosystem is not necessarily the notification piece of things. Everyone can send out a notification. That's not a big deal. But being able to take mobile response. So on the outbound side, and we'll take a look at this when I jump into the product, we could pretty much automate anything that has a REST or a SOAP API. And this being a ConnectWise peer group or ConnectWise affiliated peer group, with Manage, I know that a lot of ConnectWise products have very comprehensive APIs, but especially Manage. So interactions with your PSA and extending even beyond that. What can I do in the case that I don't need to wake someone up at 2 a.m. because this is something that has a layer of auto remediation in place? So the second that rules is set up in AlertOps to pick up a ticket that came in, it'll be auto healed, but at the same time, that's a byproduct of an automation solution that you already have. Then AlertOps would detect that and automatically just add time and then assign the corresponding on-call owner. That way, you're not necessarily doing anything, taking any intervention, but you're still getting paid for the ticket resolution. Similarly, the aggregation piece is one thing that we definitely help with as well. A lot of tools, and this is very common that we see, a lot of managed service providers have multiple tools monitoring roughly the same thing, different aspects of their infrastructure, the client infrastructure, but at the same time, 4 tools can tell us the same thing regarding an event. Does that mean that everyone should be woken up for all 4 events? Does that mean that various signals should be prioritized? Do we need to take a look at potentially normalizing data across systems so that we can deduplicate and then filter and prioritize so that we can address things that actually matter? And finally, address things in real time, right? Address things when they pop up rather than staring at a screen waiting for them to pop up. Now let's take a quick look at how this works. So alert ops can ingest signals via a few different ways. We can pretty much ingest any JSON that can be sent to a REST API. So if you have a tool that's capable of posting to a REST API, alert ops can ingest it, and the rest of the configuration is all no code as far as what fields you should take action on, what fields should trigger workflows. It's completely no code. You just need to have a tool send something to our API. Alternatively, for anything that might not have that capacity, we have the concept of email connectors or email integrations. So a lot of what we see with respect to PSA tools and email connectors is the parsing is a little bit weak, right? The ability to capture things in discrete fields and then map them to custom fields in your PSA so the workflows can run off of them. The fact that you might want to capture discrete fields so that in the case there's a change to those, that something is updated. A lot of that parsing logic and capability within PSA tools that we see in the ecosystem fall a little bit short of what's necessary to actually evaluate the nature of a service request or the nature of an incident. Sure, we can check it to see if urgent is in the subject line, but it's probably about it. So outside of API and email, AlertOps also has a lightweight IVR system built in. So as you know, we have a scheduling engine as well as escalation engine that we use for notification, but we also have that phone system so you can set up a simple call tree that'll follow the rest of your on-call schedules, right? So now there's removing the administration of 2 tools into one, and you've already set up the schedule, so it'll follow the same thing. Now, once we have ingested that data, you can build out rule sets to determine what alerting playbooks or escalation policies and workflows should kick off. That'll be based on whatever schedules or whatever groups you've configured in your environment. So let's say that I want to directly go to my level 2 support desk, and I don't know who's on call at this point. Based on the logic, it'll automatically check the schedule with automatic rotations and then notify that individual. And then finally, we have the concept of stakeholder notifications and reporting. Now, with that said, this is what a sample workflow would look like. The cool thing about AlertOps is we can sit downstream of your ticketing tool, which means that we'll ingest stuff, apply rules, and then initiate the notification playbook and provide the capacity for mobile response. Or we can sit in between, right? So let's say that there's a monitoring tool that sends something over to AlertOps because the only capacity it has to send is email and your tickets aren't being formatted properly. And AlertOps can sit in the middle because of its granular parsing capabilities and automate the process of ticket creation. That just saved 3 to 5 minutes from a tech per ticket because an email connector doesn't parse properly. The ability that for someone to click a sign via mobile app or potentially upgrade the priority of a ticket via mobile app to initiate subsequent communications rather than seeing it via text message, waiting to remote into the machine, potentially VPN, then log into ConnectWise. Once they're logged in, then they can update the priority. So these marginal improvements in process are really where, when tied together, AlertOps drives value and operational efficiency through automation for managed service providers. The mobile application has complete capability of response. So assign, close, escalate, add other users or groups to a particular incident, reply, add note, or the last one, outbound action. Now, that's kind of my favorite because I am a nerd. And the fact that we can talk to any API on the outbound side means that you can pretty much do anything with the tool that is modern and cloud-based. So in the case that you have an API stood up in front of a homegrown system, you could definitely interact to automate things there. In the case of something like a Cisco Meraki, right, where you have the capability of running automation scripts or ConnectWise Automate for that matter, maybe trigger a script on demand just by looking at the incident on your mobile app. So these are some of the things that AlertOps helps automate with for managed service providers and in general. But I'll jump into the tool so we can actually take a look at this live. As I'm doing that, though, Any questions so far, feel free to interrupt me, jump in, shout out any questions. I think that the more interactive it is, the better I can answer any questions or any areas that we might be able to help address. So anything so far? All right, I will take that as a no. Cool. So can everyone see my AlertOps web app screen here? Is that still visible?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So what you see right now is the dashboard. And I'd mentioned that AlertOps is an alert management response tool, has on-call capabilities. But if someone were to ask me to describe what AlertOps does in 2 words, I would classify it as a digital switchboard, right? We ingest signals, we apply some level of logic that sits within the tool, and then kick out signals, whether that's to people, whether that's to third-party systems. We are essentially evaluating data that we've ingested and pushing it somewhere else. That's the crux of what AlertOps does. Now, the magic is really in the middle, right? The magic is the logic. What can I do? What can I evaluate so a human doesn't have to evaluate it? What can I automate or write to a ticket? What can I send to a client so a human doesn't have to do it? Those are some of the incremental pieces of value in automation where AlertOps would focus. So what you're seeing right now is a high-level overview of the current state of alerting and response within your environment. So we've got more of an operational overview, top 10 open alerts, your count by priority, the percentage of your alerts that are falling inside versus outside their designated SLAs. And then on the right-hand side, more of an infrastructure-based overview. So we can see what services or integration endpoints are being hit by tools sending alarms to AlertOps, what the health of an integration is based on the number of alerts that are opened, and then drilling down even deeper, right? You might have one ConnectWise integration, but 150 customers. So you can delineate that even further, and that's completely customizable as well, beyond just our out-of-the-box configuration, to say that I have multiple sources per integration. Maybe each customer counts as a source, or alternatively, maybe the tier of SLA that they have. You want to track customers and tickets based on the tier of SLA. That can count as a source. So fairly customizable in terms of the data that you see, as well as you would want broken out so that it's easier to identify where there might be bottlenecks. Now, beyond the dashboard, I'll jump into one of our core pieces of functionality, which is going to be on-call scheduling. And on-call scheduling is virtually everywhere, right? Whether it's ConnectWise or people doing it in Outlook or another on-call solution or potentially Excel in a lot of cases that I've seen as well. It works, but it's not integrated. That's the problem, right? You can, in ConnectWise, for example, take a look at your on-call solution, potentially assign the corresponding resource as a byproduct of them being on schedule. From an Outlook perspective, you have visibility as far as who's on call, but really nothing else. The fact that AlertOps provides this platform for response automation and escalation and has that scheduling engine tied in means that you have the ability to include your schedule as a fundamental part of the way that you respond. So here what you see is the roster for 1 week for a 10-member team. And you can see that I have a different subset of my 10-member team on call at different points during the day. So throughout the course of the day, I have 3 primaries and 2 secondaries. Maybe I want a notification in the case that a P1 service request, even if it's during business hours, hasn't been acknowledged within 30 minutes. Then I want to blast all the primaries at once. And then another 5 minutes later, I want to blast the secondaries, or potentially directly go to the owner to send a notification that via text message that something hasn't been addressed. Similarly, after hours, you can see here that I have rotation set up. So based on the configuration of your schedule, a lot of this is really set it and forget it. Based on a survey that we did internally with some of our customers prior to using AlertOps and after using AlertOps, how long a service desk manager was spending on writing up schedules per week. A lot of the times they might write up the schedule for the month or for the next 90 days. Or alternatively, it might be week by week that they're entering it in. They said that they spent close to 30 minutes per week on average, actually just dictating the schedules and finding out what the rotation should look like and communicating that with people. AlertOps simplifies that once, right? Set it up once and forget it. Set it and forget it, and then you can have weekly email reminders for anyone that's on call with what the actual roster looks like. Similarly, once you've set it up here, we have the concept of a web cal feed. So add a calendar to your Outlooks. Your engineers, your service desk operators can still see everything the way that they see it today, but it actually plays into a layer of automation for notifications that don't exist today. Similarly, if you want a static feed, we have an iCal export for up to 90 days as well. Now, this is a bit of a basic schedule. Let's take a look at something a little bit more advanced. Let's say that you have a major incident scenario where it's an all hands on deck situation. You're going to need more than just your level 1 support team. You might need more than just your level 2 support team. Maybe you would want it to potentially escalate through business segments based on the nature of the incident. Here you see the concept of nested teams. So I have 3 different teams that have been nested under my major incident management team: cloud management, DevOps production support, and Nakatomi Plaza team. So at different points of the day, based on whoever's on call from each of these teams, along with the escalation rule or notification playbook that's been set up, it'll essentially involve the right parties automatically from each one of them. So there's no more manual triage as well as manual routing, right? Trying to get a hold of the right person from the right team without necessarily knowing how they're going to play a part in the incident or even who's responsible for taking action on it. So AlertOps has that ability for you to build in that rule set. So when, something does go wrong, you have the process in place and the backbone to automate what the notification procedure looks like. So any questions just around scheduling so far? If not, I can jump into what my favorite piece is, some of the integration and some of the downstream workflow automations here. All right. So from an integration standpoint, as I'd mentioned, we have a few ways that we can ingest data, obviously, at virtually any email, any JSON, and then you can build out the rule sets. But we actually have close to a couple hundred out-of-the-box integrations with pre-built tools in the managed services space, within IT operations, and then just service management in general. So if you take a look here, we have quite a few tools where once you've configured that tool to post to AlertOps, that point, all you got to do is set up your schedule and dictate what your alerting SOP is going to look like. At what points for what types of alerts do you actually want a layer of redundancy? At what point do you want AlertOps to auto-generate a ticket and manage versus discard a signal because it might be a flapping scenario or some layer of noise? Within these integrations, we have quite a bit of flexibility, and I can walk you through that. But I'd want to pause here just to talk to you a little bit around how a lot of on-call tools into the ecosystem work and why they're a little bit limited in terms of automation. So when we're talking about generic on-call solutions in the ecosystem and what they've done to date, it's been very, very tightly coupled, right? And the problem with that is I have one team, I have a schedule. I know that I'm going to notify my primary via text message at minute 0. At minute 10, I'm going to send them a phone call. At minute 15, it goes to my secondary. And minute 45, it goes to my manager. And that applies to the integration for this one group. And let's say that's ConnectWise managed, and all of a sudden you bring on Auvik as well, and you wanted to plug in your on-call solution to Auvik. You're rebuilding that. You're rebuilding the same escalation chain. You're rebuilding the same group because it's very much tied to your integration. The fact that AlertOps is decoupled means a few different things. If you have a service desk team that follows an SOP for a P1 versus a P2, very, very basically, you don't necessarily have to maintain and build the configuration in 2 different spots that's virtually identical just because the data is coming from a different source. So I'll jump into a ConnectWise Manage integration here, and we can take a look at why that flexibility really matters. So if I jump into this particular ConnectWise Manage integration, out of the box, I have what boards are sending data over, right? And then some out-of-the-box automations that you can take as well. If it's assigned, move it to a certain status. Closed, move it to a certain status in my PSA. Log notes in specific conditions or an audit trail of the communication directly within your ticket. If an alert is generated in AlertOps, maybe generate a ticket in ConnectWise. But that also follows a set of rules. So we have an escalation rule as well as a default recipient group that's going to be kicked off when this alert's created. But let's say for different types of alerts, we want different escalations, different alerting playbooks to initiate, or alternatively, the same alerting playbook with the different subset of users from the same group. You can very easily build that out, and that's our ability to pretty much evaluate and build logic around any data field you've got. right? If you got custom tags in Auvik, if you got custom fields in ConnectWise, virtually any field that you have access to within external systems, AlertOps can predominantly access. So from your fields, the object that you've set up across your integrations, across the source systems that you already have monitoring for ticketing, etc., you can say that if the summary contains offline server, I want to kick off a completely different process, but with the same group of people than I do in the case that it says disk space low, right? Similarly, you have the ability directly from the type of incident to say, I want to notify a different subset of people, route it to different people based on the nature of the incident. And based on conversations with some of our managed service provider partners, they mentioned that a lot of this currently is being done via a dedicated person to triage, right? And the problem there too, and I had an interesting conversation about this last week, is that everyone here is probably aware of recessionary concerns. You can't have a conversation without talking about them today. Everyone's scared of the state of the economy. So I think that over the next year or two, what it's going to become is less of what can I afford to expand, more so how can I maximize the level or the potential of operations that I already have resources for. And that's what AlertOps does. It takes someone that might be dedicated to triaging an incident and then builds 50 to more of a percent of that within the tool, so that's automated. And now you have someone that is available to actually address service requests rather than just route them. Now I'll walk through a couple of more things, an escalation rule, and then I'll jump into our mobile app, and then I'll open it up for any questions. So an escalation rule at its core is really just that. It defines a policy for how you want something to escalate. Here we have a timeline when it's applied to a group. So we have the ability for notifications via email, SMS, phone call, and push notification via our mobile app. We have the concept of centralized and user-based rules. In a centralized rule, I'm dictating that for a primary, exactly how that role will be notified, any retries, any wait times between contact methods, etc. User-based essentially just means that the user gets to pick, right? When something gets to me in the escalation path, maybe I want a text message at minute 1, a push notification at minute 5, and then a phone call at minute 10. That kind of distinction between user preference and then what it might be standard for the organization is we normally see being applied in criticality oriented events, right? So something that is very critical would be a centralized rule, follow a standard operating procedure for virtually everyone in the organization. And then something that's a little less critical but still warrants response might follow a user-based notification. But beyond the escalation chain, we have workflows here, right? And this is what takes that line, that timeline that we saw, and really turns it into a tree, because anyone can send things up and down a chain, but can we respond to things throughout the course of a request? If a service request based on some workflow gets kicked up from P3 to a P1, can we do something about that? Or is there something that needs to be done about that? In the case that we recognize something is flapping as a byproduct of that, should we notify people, hey, this is going to go up and down for XYZ period based on what we've noticed, so we're not going to be sending out notifications for this? Do we need to inform customers for some level of visibility around the course of a service request or an incident? So here you see I have additional communication workflows to both people and to systems. I'm opening and closing status page incidents based on when the alert opens or closes. I'm automatically notifying the manager 1 hour prior to the SLA, and then once it's acknowledged, every hour that it's not resolved, updating the owner as well. Similarly, if there's a status change in AlertOps, post that to your PSA. In the case that you would want your audit trail of communication and that timeline depicted automatically rather than you needing to review, well, why at 4:03 didn't John respond to this P1 request? Right there within your ticket. Additionally, we have outbound actions, right? So workflows can automate things in external systems via API based on a set of conditions that you build out. But there's never going to be a completely automated system, at least in my perspective, from my perspective, right? I believe that there are things that involve a layer of human intervention and people to take a look and make a decision that human element is kind of critical in some situations, and so you want someone to review something before it automatically generates a ticket. And those are outbound actions. So whether it's add a time entry or create a ticket or potentially update a third-party homegrown system, whatever that is that you would like to do, anything that can be done via API can be done with the tap of a button with Alert Ops once it's configured. So on the go, if you're at the dinner table, recognize that this warrants a P2 event because you get a notification and it's escalated to you. Tap a button. And you know that a P2, because it's a P2 event, you have a longer SLA, finish your dinner, and then you can start taking a look at it. So that layer of both automation from the system as well as ad hoc actions that can be automated upon human trigger are, once again, small pieces of your response process, but the ones that make a big difference. The final piece I'll walk you through here is our mobile app. There are a couple of other areas in the tool that I haven't addressed. If you are interested, I'm just running through what a majority of our managed services clients find value in. Here we have our mobile app. So fairly simple and predominantly meant for response. You can initiate manual pages or escalation chains directly from here by creating an alert, or you can view alerts. And this is broken up based on views, anything that has been escalated to you, anything that's been initiated for a different member, but still a part of a group that you're a part of, and then with the appropriate role-based access control, what has been generated, period. And a bit of filtering capabilities around what you'd want to see here. Similarly, if we just swipe to the right or left of an alert, you can close, assign, as well as, if my emulator wants to load here, oh, I think I might have clicked into it. Let's see. So you can close, assign, and then the context menu provides those same actions, right? Escalate, add recipient, reply, log a note, or let's take an outbound action. So in this case, outside of just creating a ticket, I have a service that can be restarted via API. Let me go ahead and try and run that remediation action. If in the case that you're integrated with Automate, one of the things that we're looking to finalize by around end of January is substantially more pre-built integrations with Automate so that you can execute a lot of these remediation actions with the tap of a button directly from your mobile app. Maybe you need to create a conference bridge on the fly or potentially open an incident or update a ticket. Anything that can be done via API can be an action that you can trigger via AlertOps' mobile app. Now here we have a few fields. In this case, I'm capturing my board name, company name, and ticket ID. You can capture pretty much whatever you'd want, and you can also update them. So I have a drop down here for my ticket status. So I don't want to change the status of my AlertOps alert, but I might want to change the status of the ticket to pending review. Right? Virtually any field from your ticket can also be automatically updated directly from the AlertOps mobile app. We also have a bit, yeah.
Hey, I'm not sure if you can see it because of presentation mode, but David had a question in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Please, go ahead. I did not see that. Jump in here. Is that in the Q&A or in the chat?
Yeah, it's on the chat. It's asking if it's possible to merge alerts and hence tickets when the responding tech identifies that they are related.
Very soon. So that's actually something that is in development at the moment for merging tickets. We can actually merge tickets in ConnectWise. The concept of merging alerts in AlertOps doesn't exist yet today, but that's actually something that we're in the process of developing right now. Any other questions? Once again, feel free just to unmute yourself, jump in and interrupt me. I'm more than welcome it. If not, I will quickly run through the rest of this here. So you can see just an audit trail of who was notified at what time for each message. See, I've responded, I'm on it. So you can set up different response rules for any replies. And then finally, you've got that timeline functionality, right? So just a very line item based overview of what happened chronologically throughout the course of your event, whether someone assigned it, whether someone closed it, etc. Cool. So from a pretty high level, I think I've gone through most of the areas that we see commonly being used by our current MSP clients today, but I'd be more than happy to jump into any of the configuration piece or do a deep dive on some of the other areas that you're interested in. But I'll hold right now, see if you have any questions, anything else you might like to see, anything else you're curious about.
I'll go.
Yeah.
So I keep hearing we can very simply do this and very simply do that. However, I would tell you that it looks very complex, would be my initial thought.
Yep.
I'm having trouble connecting the dots. Can you just take me from let's say that I'm an end user who has to log in tonight and I can't get logged in because there's something jacked up with my password. Where does that start? I mean, normally they would, my end users would call a phone number and they would reach an answering service of humans that we pay. And, that's what starts the ball rolling. How does this work in your system? Can you take me from beginning to end?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I think that it really starts with where we ingest data from, right? What can possibly trigger an alert? In your situation, that answering service, so question there, once your answering service has answered the call, did they automatically create a ticket, or what happens after that?
It's pretty 1950s, I got to admit. They send an email to our ticketing system. They send a text to the on-call person. The on-call person responds and says, I got it. They go hunting down the ticket and returning the call.
Okay, gotcha. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that process would look like, right? In our situation, that would start with live call routing. Now, we can ingest that email, right? Let's say that you wanted to keep your answering service and they were to send an email to Alert Ops, we can ingest that too. But let's start with the step where someone's actually calling in with a problem. That goes to our pre-built IVR system, right? In the tool. So we would assign you a number for your environment, and then you can set up rules there, right? In this case, you've got a welcome message, and then forward it to this particular team. So we saw a schedule. It'll go through this particular schedule. Let's say it came in at 8:01. Hit Gary, then Boris, John, Johnny, and Carl. If no one responds, then allow them to leave a voice message, generate a ticket.
So in this case, it forwards the live call. It tries to forward the live call. Okay.
Yeah. So we can ask them to leave a message and then notify after, but normally we recommend doing both, right? We normally recommend forward the live call. If no one answers, no one answers. Automatically generate a ticket via workflow and ConnectWise, and then use this escalation rule, right? So now that we know that no one has answered, use this escalation rule to get a hold of whoever's on call. So this has that escalation path to say, all right, there is a ticket. This person called in, this voicemail was left, or phone call was unanswered. Go through your escalation path. If no one responds, keep going, right? And you still have that ticket as a record in there. So kind of cutting out that middleman of the answering service altogether. Does that make sense?
I'm nodding my head, but I was muted. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Awesome. Any other questions? Anything else like in terms of process that you might like to take a look at?
Hey Cam, I saw when you were showing the app, as soon as you brought it up, it said like you're not on call. Do you have the ability to put yourself on call from there?
So via the mobile app, no. Via the web app, you can schedule yourself. What you can do is set out of office periods, right? So let's say that I have a dentist appointment at 7 p.m. today, and I know that I'm on call. I can select my start date, start time, end date, and end time. And then let's say I'm a part of multiple groups. I can add a different person for each group, or alternatively, one person to cover anything that comes into me. So you can definitely set up out of office, but most of the time the actual on-call schedules aren't ad hoc. They're more so pre-templated, right? So one person builds out the rotation, whoever the administrator is of Alert Ops, and then from there, you could set up any out of offices on the go, but the pre-built template, the pre-built rotation for whatever duration they've set is kind of set in stone there. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And actually that that will be a way to do. I can just see, one evening, Scott has the flu.
Yeah.
He reaches out to somebody else, like, hey, can you cover for me? Yes, and then he can just set up an out of office, set up the other person, and it gets automatically routed to that individual.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And one additional thing too, right? While going through this, because we are very much focused on improving our offering for managed service providers, we're coming out with a new web application, so completely new UI about mid-January. And then additionally, one of the focuses for Q1 and Q2 for us is additional use cases. So if there's something that you would like to see, right, or something that you think would be cool for an alerting system to have or for you to take response on, please feel free. I'll drop my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me because we'll definitely set up time to work with your team as well to see what we can do. Maybe even put you guys in a beta for any new features that come out. Would definitely want to, keep our ears to the ground, make sure that what we build actually matters to the people that would like to take a look at it. Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that. It's the same thing. Is there anybody else have any questions for Cam? That sounds like a no.
All right.
Cam, I really appreciate you coming in and showing that and sharing with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
In that
case, I will go off.
All right, everybody. I sent out that email. I didn't get any feedback. If anybody had something that they wanted to share with the group, like I said earlier, sometimes we do things with our systems, not necessarily inside of these usual tools, and maybe just bring some other third-party items that you'll be able to automate or it's benefit your organization, benefit clients, save you time. If anybody wanted to share something with the team that somebody else can go, oh, I can do that.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Something that I was trying to solve earlier this week, and I do not have a solve for it. Wonder if anybody else is already doing this. This kind of stemmed from the fact that I've just added the Screen Connect remote support option, which I did not have previously. And as long as I'm doing that, I'd like to start doing a better job of getting configurations, managed workstation configurations tied to tickets. And that led me to like, okay, well, how can I know that Sandy's computer is tied to Sandy's contact, which would speed up the process of attaching the proper configuration to the ticket. Seems like a very manual process, and I don't think there's any automation around it right now at all. But if somebody else is doing a good job of that, I'd be interested in knowing how they're accomplishing it. Sounds like maybe nobody else is facing that challenge or bothered to figure it out.
Yeah, ours is a manual process. The guy's attaching the configuration to the ticket. The only time that it does have the configuration and stuff attached is if we generate a ticket on the automate side that pushes over into manage.
Right. And you're not doing the configuration attachment otherwise, or you do it and they just do it manually?
We do require that it's attached, and the review to make sure that it is attached is part of our two-step close that our service manager works on.
Okay.
Have you looked at workflow rules?
Yeah, I opened a chat with ConnectWise support, and of course I got the great idea. You should make that an enhancement request. answer, which usually when they tell me that, I say to them, yeah, that's where great ideas go to die. But, bringing it up in a room like this, I feel like, all right, maybe other people see value in it and they would actually go vote for it. But other than that, generally, I don't take the time to do enhancement requests because it feels like a waste of time.
Oh, well, just in the last, I think it was a little over a year ago, they brought on a way to attach configurations through a workflow rule when you flight the rule all the way out to the very granular level of the service board. So you could play around with that. We don't necessarily do it, but if you have some type of case where you always want this contact on the ticket to have their specific device attached to the ticket, the rule could possibly do that for you. I haven't tried it myself, but
that's what I'm looking for. I think that would be a huge way to go. And they may not be calling about a problem with their device, but hey, it's not going to have a problem. If we got their workstation attached to the ticket and they don't need that information, that's okay.
So how would you then filter out where the client point of contact opens up half the tickets for the client in those cases where the end user is logged onto 2 computers or 3 computers at once, which seems pretty common for us?
Yeah, I think the automation that you'd be looking for is going to be a case, how your operations is running, right? If you do have clients that you just use a single point of contact, then maybe that automation isn't for you. But it doesn't mean that, if depending on how your items, subtypes, and all that is done, if you know that it's going to be a firewall and that's that firewall for that location, it just gets dropped in there every time. So you can automate probably a good chunk of it for maybe network devices, but individual computers, and especially got to make sure you got a process behind making sure that when they get a new computer, that how that's all tied together and all that is changed in the workflow for that user or what that user is tied to. So it might be more trouble than it's worth in the end.
How many of you are actually requiring the configurations to be attached to the tickets? If you just want to do show of hands on the reaction, you mentioned that Scott and Dave. Sounds like that's what you're wanting to do. We don't require it. We mainly encourage it, and we don't bring any of the workstation configurations into manage from Automate. Just do the server and network devices.
The beauty of it, in my mind, again, I don't have it working, but you can connect directly to that managed workstation without ever going into Automate or Control, and just launch your session from the ticket.
Ticket, yep.
That's kind of where I'm wanting to be.
Now, so we use configurations not only just for the endpoints, but also whether it's an application or a service. So that way guys can easily go back as well too and say, look at the history of tickets behind maybe, a SaaS application that they're using and see the history. And has this been done already once before, right? And maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago, didn't think that it was going to be something that'd be reoccurring, that they created a document in IT Glue or Hoodoo or whatever you use. So we have that history behind each workstation, user, application, device. Makes it a little easier to track down. I'm going to drop a link into chat here. Sierra Pacific Group actually had a webinar earlier this week that was based on automation, and this morning they sent out the recording. So if anybody's interested in watching that and just kind of a few things that they were doing or kind of talked about and how they do it. I'm doing a lot through PowerShell even. That might be of interest. So if you got time, you guys might check that out as well.
All right.
Is anybody automating the deployment of new workstations as far as cleanups or software installs, or is anybody automating 365 user creations?
We have looked for years at using MSP Toolshed for automating workstation deployment, and we finally took another swing at it just maybe 3 months ago, and we're making great strides with it. We deployed about 40 workstations, after the unboxing, but about 40 workstations, I believe, in about an hour. So, yeah, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, we just stopped using MSP Toolshed. It had lots of problems with Windows 11, and kind of it saved a lot of time getting them out of the box and picking a language and a keyboard layout and all that nonsense. And it ran scripts in your Automate fine, but anything else they tried to add for us just didn't work or was so buggy that it took up a lot of time. And I've probably gotten more out of ImmyBot in less than 24 hours we've been demoing it than I was able to get MSP Toolshed to do in a year. So I guess if you had to pick one, I would definitely start with ImmyBot, for what that's worth.
Now we use a fog server internally to deploy images for our clients. I don't do it much, that's what I have the other guys to do. So it's something new that we started this year, so I don't have full feedback on them on that. To see what other else is out there.
Yeah, at Steele County, we're in-house IT, and we utilize SCCM for all of our images. New equipment, pushing all the applications. Some applications which are optional, but we make available. All of those get delivered via Software Center, which is part of SCCM. And then we also, if there's an issue where we cannot resolve something cleanly, easily, or if there's a transfer of equipment to a new user, always just re-image it straight back to clearing.
Anybody out there using the going into the Intune, trying to imaging and deploying software for clients? I know every time we bring that up, we have our enterprise engineers saying, let's go ahead and do it via Intune, which seems to be a lot of more setup involved and per client instead of having a centralized solution.
It's been on my mind to look at to do. That said, I think the complication that we would run into is not all of our clients have the 365 licensing to be able to take advantage of Intune. So, at what, how do we get around that? It's obviously upselling, but sometimes it's, we know how hard it is sometimes for the client to see the value, and especially if it's saving us time and us money, right? And they got to spend the money to do it. They're generally not too keen on doing so.
Yeah, we don't use Intune for like a laptop or a desktop deployment and such, but we are using it for the MDM on all of the mobile devices, phones and such. That has not been a problem. It's been a really good solution. We use that on one of our two agencies that we support, and on the other one, we're currently using MOS 360. That gives us all the application support and as well as the security that we need to do on the devices. So it's both of them have been very good. I wouldn't really tell you much of a preference between the two. It just happens to be, they're both 365 clients. It's just at what level.
Yeah, just like you, David, we're using SCCM here for internal images. And every now and then we get somebody, we're going to do a deployment for a client, and they just upload an image, brand new one, and then we'll do it on we have what we call a deployment lab. Build all in here, and then just take it to the client. I am interested in that EMUbots, though. I did see him at the last conference. Might check that out.
Just in case if you're not paying attention to the chat, Nicole's dropped some things in there about adding the configuration through a workflow.
Yeah, I just tested it, and like you said, Scott, it would definitely be unique cases. Your service team would need to be real mature in how they set up their tickets. If they don't ever look at the contact, they assume it's just the person who shows up as the primary or whatever, then that could pose problems. But if you have really good operational maturity there, and unique cases, like we wouldn't be able to really benefit from this. But Dave, if you have, Cindy always calls in with her laptop computer issues, and she's a known caller, and everybody knows that there's issues there for Cindy and laptops. It might be helpful.
You obviously know that we have a Cindy. Yeah, that's good. Appreciate you sharing that.
You're welcome.
So how many people are actually leveraging the Centrify or what is it? Centrifity? What? I'm thinking about it. What is it called? I gotta look. The Active Directory replication between automate and manage in order to bring in contact information, and how many people from an onboarding perspective actually go in and modify Active Directory to support those like contact data getting placed into the system properly? Like, is that a normal process for your team during onboarding process, or is that something that just kind of like falls to the wayside and nobody really cares about it?
So years ago, when that functionality came out, we attempted to use it, and it tied the contacts to the configuration inside of Automate.
Right.
But it kind of got more of a pain in the ass than what it was worth. Now, what we do is we use user-centric and manage to sync those contacts back into manage, and just they're not tied to a configuration really.
They're tied to the billing aspect of it, right?
You don't have to. We don't bill by user, but it allows us to make sure that we get as our provisioning team creates a new user, with that nightly sync, we're getting that user pulled over into manage, and so they're a contact in the system for tickets. That's the way that we use user-centric. We don't use it from a billing aspect.
Got it. Do you now, as it relates to the Active Directory hygiene, let's say, right? Like, are you guys going in and modifying or updating Active Directory appropriately to show, email address, contact phone number, things of that nature? Is that like part of your process for new users and stuff like that?
Yep, that is part of our new user provisioning process. And we lay that, like, our user provisioning processes are pretty detailed, so that way I can bring somebody off the street almost and do that. Screenshots, making sure it's saying, yes, you're adding the email address into that field. If we don't really utilize the telephone number. If we do have a direct line for them, we'll put that in there as well. It helps, obviously when we bring that information over, that they have the best contact information for the end user on those tickets.
Okay. And when you're onboarding a new organization, call it 50 client or 50 users, is that a part of the onboarding process? Is that you go in and let's say that obviously, Active Directory is never clean, right? So is that part of the process? Do you go in and actually like update all that information?
We do. I mean, part of our onboarding process too. I mean, we usually spend sometimes a week at a client's, talking with them, understanding their users, introducing ourselves, but making all these different configuration changes, having these meetings. The more time that we can spend to get as much detail and the documents and stuff ready for our support team, the better experience it is for our clients that our support team is able to pick up pretty seamlessly right off the bat to do that. So if we don't take the time to do it up front, it just causes more heartache in the back end.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. We do spend a lot of time doing that cleanup and that initial cleanup, doing the onboarding. It's a pain, going through those. I mean, sometimes we find that they have, active users that are no longer there, so we have to sit down with their staff. But moving forward, it makes things a lot easier.
Yep.
Awesome.
I don't know if you caught it in the chat, but Brent was just talking about bouncing the Azure AD information over to manage via IT Glue. We do that heavily as well, not just between those two applications, but between others.
And David, what else are you using IT Glue as the go-between, or what other kinds of data are you syncing?
I'm trying to think. We had used for a while there. We were doing some. I can't think of the name of the product or what it was, but we had a backlog of a huge number of mistaken expiration dates on warranties. And so we used a warranty application, which theoretically connected to ConnectWise, but it was a really bad connection. And so we bounced it off of IT Glue instead because it could talk to both of them. And instantly, everything was current. And I know we've done several other ones. Some of them have been temporary and some more permanent, but nothing else just jumping out at the top of my head.
Yeah, and we struggled with that with Warranty Master for a while, and then Lifecycle Insights. Yeah, Lifecycle Insights is literally a third of the price, and much easier to get. It would be worth paying for just to get the warranty data. You had Warranty Master, it's a fraction of the cost.
Thank you.
So Brent, you had made a comment like there's two different applications that you would recommend. Can you repeat those one more time? You had said one was for the warranty, and then the other one was for the machine builds. What were those again?
Yeah, so ImmyBot for the machine builds.
Can you spell that?
IMMY.bot. So it's a little bit more of a definitely newer. It's definitely a little bit buggier, but the original developers live in a Slack channel, and so you can get to talk to the original developers and get sort of meaningful responses almost immediately. But you definitely feel like you're coding some of it yourself in PowerShell, but kind of same price as MSP Toolshed, much quicker, does a lot more right out of the box. So I would definitely check out ImmyBot, and then the other was Lifecycle Insights. I happened to run into them at an IT Nation right after Warranty Master had literally doubled my rates, and so we were paying $700 or $800 to Warranty Master just for the volume of PCs, and then we got the same warranty information out of Lifecycle Insights for like $200 a month.
Okay.
And I also like their QBR product, but why started with them was just to get the warranty information.
Awesome.
Now, a question about the life cycles insights warranty information. I mean, one of the big things with Warranty Master, I don't know if anybody has done it, is purchasing the warranty if you can't get it through Dell or anything anymore. Can you do that through life cycles, or no? It's just reporting.
It's just reporting.
Okay.
We had purchased a couple of warranties, but we found we never used them, and it was easier just to push clients to buy new hardware.
Okay.
Again, as in-house IT, we have a little bit less struggle with some of the warranty things because the decisions are kind of made up front. But we typically are doing 3-year warranties and a 4-year refresh. That 4th year is anything that fails in that 4th year, it's already scheduled for later in the year. So you either bring it forward or you repair it if you have to. But for the most part, that saves us, a 1/4 of the cost of the warranties. A little tougher when you're an MSP though.
Yeah.
So how much did you say you were paying for life cycles, or maybe it's just the way that I'm reading it here? It looks like it's like $80 a month for unlimited customers, but I don't know if that's just based upon if you add that to their VCIO or customer success licensing.
Yeah, and I guess I ended up buying both of those because
okay,
I needed a better process, and their process was better than what we were doing.
Okay.
And these both integrate with Manage, Automate, IT Glue, all the above?
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading right off of here. It says PSA integrations, CW Manage, Autotask, Synchro, Halo PSA, and IT Glue.
Okay. And this is lifecycleinsights.com, right?
Yeah, I just dropped the link at their pricing page into the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have a ton of videos on YouTube. I mean, you can definitely see exactly what it looks and feels like from YouTube.
All right, everybody. It is. I appreciate that. That was a great conversation. I appreciate we went over the guys. You guys that stay a little bit after. Cam left, so I do appreciate him coming in, and hopefully you guys found that useful. So I'm going to post for those of you that are not on the Slack. I'm going to post a link there. Because I'm going to post the recording and also all these links in there if anybody wants to reference those back later on.
Cool.
So
thanks, guys. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic day. And if I don't talk to you, have a Merry Christmas.